Hey, and welcome back into Weagle 91.1 FM. I'm Chris Williams. Alongside me, JJ Josh Jackson and Ryan Lavoie. We're here every Monday afternoon starting at 4 o'clock talking about the NBA and college basketball. And right now, the past couple of weeks, we've been breaking down our power rankings that we've decided on. We talked about and come to a decision among the three of us about what our power rankings are from 30 all the way to number one. And this week, this is our third week of doing this, so we've been on, what teams are these numbers-wise? This is, 18 through 12?
Something
like that, 18 through 13.
Yeah, 18 through 13.
And so we just talked about the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics. We're going to move on to the Indiana Pacers now, a team that has a big player coming back this year. They have Paul George back. He missed all of last season except for, the last couple games, because of that nasty leg break for when he was playing with Team USA last summer. So he is finally back. I know that the Indiana Pacers cannot wait, and there's a lot of news around him, surrounding him. Coach Vogel is talking about playing him at the 4 this year, so that's big news coming out of Indiana. You still have George Hill, who was there when Indiana was on top of the East a couple years ago. You bring in Monte Ellis, but no longer do you have David West and Roy Hibbert anchoring that backcourt. And you have to rely on Ian Mahimi and Miles Turner, their first-round draft pick. And then you also bring in George Hill, Rakeem Christmas, a really good draft pick, I think, from Syracuse. This team is not as good talent-wise, I believe, as they were back when they were on top of the East. But this is a Pacers team that has some pride, and I think they're going to surprise a lot of people, especially if Paul George can return to the MVP form that we saw 2 years ago, whenever he was just wrecking the NBA the first couple of months of the 2013-14 season.
When you talk about the Pacers, all we have to talk about going into this season is Paul George. He is going to decide how good this team can be coming back from that injury that you talked about, Chris. He played 6 games last year. The last 6 games, they were already out of playoff contention, so it's just kind of a way for him to get back. And you saw glimpses that, it was good to just see that he was confident in jumping and confident in just being the Paul George that he used to be. My biggest thing is, we talked about, Chris, media days have opened up, training camps starting this week. We are 30 days away from basketball, and we are so excited.
Oh, yeah.
But Frank Vogel is adamant about the fact that you're going to see Paul George at the power forward position, and that just frightens me. I don't see that working out well for them. I think that in the long run, you're going to see C.J. Miles moving to the bench, Jordan Hill, the guy that they got from the Lakers, stepping up and playing that 4 position, and Paul George going back to his natural spot at 3. My biggest concern is that once you have a gruesome leg injury like that, is he going to be strong enough, able to put enough weight that he can seriously and honestly defend that 4 position well? I just have to wait and see that.
Yeah, and I was just looking up Paul's numbers, and he averaged about 9 a game and only 15 and a half minutes per game. So he looked like he will return to at least a potential all-star form. But I think the signing of Monte Ellis is huge for them, and here's why. In the past, Paul, 23, 24, 25-point scorer, we think he can do that, but we're definitely not sure if he's going to be able to do that recovering from the leg injury. And so to have an accomplished scorer that can score you 20 a game and take the scoring load off of Paul some nights is key. I understand Monte does not play good defense, and that's not going to be a carrier into them making a run at winning the East. But I think it will help them on some nights where Paul George looks a little slow, maybe trying to get the stamina built back up. And so I think Monte will really help Paul get adjusted just because he'll give him a scoring load.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing. Paul George, to me, is one of my favorite players in the league to watch play defense. He's going to go out there. He's going to pick the best player on the court at all times to guard and defend. He can defend any position on the court, I feel like. He gave LeBron fits a couple years ago, so we know he's a good defender, so that's going to be a huge boost to the Indiana defense. And Coach Vogel, to me, is no, he's no chump. He's a good coach. He knows what to do. My questions about this team still just lie with the big men, and then also George Hill. He's he's a safe point guard, if that makes sense. He's a safe point guard. I don't feel like he does anything crazy. I don't think he does anything amazing or great night in or night out. But he will knock down a few threes every night. He's going to knock down some jump shots. He doesn't turn the ball over a whole lot, and he plays okay defense. So he's safe, but he's not anything that's wowing me.
Just another note that came to mind with this team. Also, when we see Paul George return, we'll also see Paul George donning a new jersey number, and that is 13 instead of 24. He's really accepted the PG-13 mantra that he has created for himself, so that's fun, and that's something that we'll be looking forward to. But, yeah, the Monta Ellis signing is one of the most surprising that hit me this offseason, because when I saw that, I just didn't think that Monta Ellis would say, I want to go play for the Pacers, especially with all the turnover that they've had this last couple of years. He doesn't know what he's going to get out of Paul George. He must have seen something that we don't that makes him feel good about Paul George coming and joining that team. So definitely it's going to be exciting to see how the Pacers turn up.
It might just be what Ryan was saying, that the scoring opportunities that Monta is going to have, that's easily a draw for Monta, because he loves to put up his shots. And there's nights I think Monta can take 20-something shots in Indiana this year.
Absolutely. He's going to need to. And like you said, Chris, the big man, it's going to be, people are raving about Miles Turner. I know that he was heavily recruited out of high school. He chose to play for Texas, which was kind of a surprising decision. Texas hasn't really been that relevant of a basketball program the past couple of seasons, but he chose to go to Texas, and then when draft time came back around, his name reappeared amongst the best players in that class, and it'll be exciting to see what he does in year one of his career.
And I think one last thing about Indiana is I think it was big for them to get Roy Hibbert out of there. Not that Hibbert can't contribute anything, it's just that people around the organization were just kind of getting tired of his lack of scoring ability, and it was just time for a new chapter for everyone there. So now we're going to move on to the Phoenix Suns. Out in the Western Conference, head coach is Jeff Hornacek, entering his third season. The Suns were at the All-Star break, really in the playoff picture. They kind of slipped out of it towards the end. But, guys, they do have some solid players. There's rumors that they're going to get, or that Markieff Morris wants out because they traded brother Marcus away. And so there looks like there's a little bit of turmoil there to start the year, but still got some talent. And then brought in Tyson Chandler to defend the rim. I think they lost Brandon Wright, and so that kind of equals each other out. Chandler maybe a little bit better version of Wright. But, this team looks solid, but then again, they're in the West. It's going to be really tough.
I think when I look at this team, we talked about it, it's the same with Indiana, just a lot of turnover from last season when you see Reggie Bullock, Marcus Morris, Brandon Wright, and Gerald Green, guys that were getting a ton of minutes for you that are no longer there. It's next man up mentality for them. Tyson Chandler is a very good signing for them, a guy that can protect your rim, and I still think he has a lot left in the tank. I know that his second stint with Dallas last season didn't really go the way he wanted it to, but I know that he can get back to that form. And when we talk about Markieff Morris, actually, speaking of Media Days, I got an update on my phone today that at Media Days today, obviously the first thing Markieff was asked about was over the summer when he made the statement that he wanted to be traded. He kind of retracted that and said, quote, I'm just glad to be back with my teammates. I'm happy to be here. I think he's just saying that so they'll get off his back. We don't really know if he's happy. I think we'll kind of figure that out as the season goes on.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one thing. I feel like a bad co-host here on the fast break with you guys, because I did not realize Mirza Teletovic signed with this team. That's a guy that I thought was one of Brooklyn's best players over the last couple of years. He was always fun to watch, a good scoring option. I know he tore his ACL last year, or
he like knee issues, but his biggest deal that knocked him out was the same thing that happened to Chris Bosh, where he actually had blood clots in his lungs as well.
Yeah. So if he can play well, I really like that signing. But I'll tell you what, T.J. Warren is a guy that has a lot of promise on this Suns team, and Alex Lynn as well, the center that got drafted, I believe, number 5 overall from Maryland in 2014. This guy's a 7'1" center. He played really well. Not 2014, 2013, excuse me. He's been in the league a couple of years. But he was starting to get a lot of minutes, and I believe Tyson Chandler can show him and teach him a lot. So I thought Tyson Chandler was a good signing for them, not just for this season, but as a mentor, someone on this team who has experience, who has a championship ring, and can teach these young guys something. And anytime I look at a team and the first two guys I see running down the court up and down full speed is Brandon Knight and Eric Bledsoe, that's a dangerous tandem. I thought Devin Booker was a really good draft pick out of Kentucky. He played really well for them during the summer league, shot the ball well, especially near the end of summer league. So that was a good signing for me. And like you said, JJ, just a tough Western Conference. This is a team that's been on the cusp of making the playoffs the last couple of years. And this could be a chance for them to make it back into the playoffs.
It's going to be nice to see, how Brandon Knight and Eric Bledsoe continue to play with each other. Knight was acquired at the trade deadline, so they only got about half a season of playing time together. And the fact that, when you look at your backup point guard is Ronnie Price, a guy that's not really, he's a safe point guard, I think is a good way to describe him. But, last season they had Dragic, Bledsoe, and Isaiah Thomas all there trying to bring the ball up for you. I think this is going to work out a lot better for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as you mentioned, Chris, when you see a backcourt with Brandon Knight and Eric Bledsoe, that's a really good place to start if you're Phoenix. I'm a little concerned that there's not going to be a lot of passing going around in that backcourt. Brandon and Eric Bledsoe are both kind of shoot-first guys, but they definitely have something to build around. I don't know if it's enough in the tough Western Conference. But, it's a building block. I think Jeff Hornacek is a very good X and O's guy. It's to be determined if he can keep the locker room together. But I think Phoenix definitely, with that backcourt, if they can maybe make a move, if they could stay in it long enough to towards the trade deadline and make a move, they could be in a good position.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, this team, I don't know why this is always important to me, but I always think about the future and draft picks. If I'm not mistaken, don't the Lakers owe their draft pick to Phoenix this year? Because it was Phoenix who was going to – or no, that got traded to the 76ers, didn't it?
Yeah, I know the Lakers own someone a pick if they're not like top 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think that ended up going – I think the Suns traded that pick to the Philadelphia 76ers, but that was going to be – I couldn't remember how that went down. But my last thing before we go to break on the Suns, in my opinion, the Suns have one of the coolest basketball courts in the entire league, have one of the coolest color schemes, jerseys, everything, the whole deal. I love it. That's one of my favorite. I was looking at NBA League Pass prices and stuff today and just thinking, and Phoenix is not one of those teams you see on national TV all the time, so I'm excited to watch them play on NBA League Pass more this year and just watch, because I just love seeing that color. Those white jerseys with the orange outlining and that floor just are a cool color combination to me.
No doubt, and one heck of a mascot when you talk about the gorilla that is the mascot of the Phoenix Suns and all the coverage he's gotten throughout the years. Once again, we're going to go to break. This is a fast break on WEGL 91.1.